Darrin Porcher right now, the former NYPD lieutenant. And lieutenants, always we're talking about this after an incident. I apologize for that because I do enjoy getting your insight here. But a lot of people hearing and seeing these type of things, they're leery enough about returning to work, not quite convinced this virus might be behind us, and now crime. What do you tell them?
Well, here's a little inside baseball. You have to focus on crime from a macro perspective, not a micro perspective. When I say macro perspective, we want to look at a lot of the underlying causes when these shootings. A lot of these underlying causes revolve around gang activities, larcenies, and retribution amongst gang members. So that being said, the police departments need to focus on where you have these surges in crime, and that's where you deploy your forces. Couple that with the supervision. We need a level of oversight to ensure that the cops are doing what they're supposed to do. And then we're going to revisit it with an after-action review. That's how you reduce crime. And unfortunately, a lot of these big city mayors in democratically controlled cities just don't get it.
I'm just wondering, too, when you think about it, Darrin, this is happening in areas where this sort of stuff used to not happen. And now it's sort of spreading to the degree of how you prioritize around that.
You're absolutely right. When we look at the area that we had the shooting just recently in D.C., we take in consideration the shooting that happened outside of the Nationals games. Traditionally, the crime happens in other components of D.C., and I don't feel that the police department in D.C. is effectively compartmentalized, controlling the crime in these areas where you traditionally experience the surges in crime. It's now manifested in different parts of the city. That's not just happening in D.C. It's happening in places like New York City. We take Times Square into account, for example. This is something that's happening ongoing. And just look at it from the perspective of being a plumber. If you don't stop the leak, you'll flood the basement.
But people are leery to go to these places the more they hear and see this. Should they be?
Well, I mean, it's a tremendous concern, because if you don't stop the bleeding, it just continues. And then when we look at the socioeconomics of tourism, it really impacts on the municipality. So it behooves the elected official, that being the mayor, to do something steadfast to get a jump and get ahead of this, because this crime seems as if it's going out of control. This summer, we've seen more shootings as a whole throughout the United States than we've seen in some time. And so it begs the question of, what is the effectiveness in the crime control strategies? And it goes back to what I mentioned earlier in connection with deployment, oversight, and supervision. And I don't believe that that's being introduced accordingly.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's clearly not the case. It's not turning this around at any time soon. Darrin Porcher, good seeing you again, my friend. I appreciate all of that.